SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
It's not exactly two athletes in prime shape, but the upcoming Netflix fight featuring Jake Paul and Mike Tyson is drawing the attention of more than just bettors. On today's episode of iGaming Daily, we're going to take a closer look at the betting action around the bout, including which jurisdictions said no thanks on event majoring, and just how much handle these stars are generating. I'm Jessica Welman, editor of SBC Americas, joined by Joe Streeter, editor of Casino Beats. Joe, before I ask you anything, I forgot the most important part of this. iGaming Daily, brought to you by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. So thank you, Optimove, for us being here to discuss Jake. I can't escape Jake Paul on this podcast no matter what I do. But you tell me, are you staying up all night and watching this?
I have to be honest, I'll be. So it's going to, obviously, because we're in the UK, it's going to be on at 3-4 in the morning. Thankfully, we have Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano just before as the chief support. That is a pure boxing matchup. That's one for the purists. That is a really good fight. But yeah, I'll be up because I think these types of events, they grow on me a little bit, and they don't tap into something that is the purist. They don't tap into the reason I stay awake last weekend to watch Jesse Bam Rodriguez fight. It's not the same reason I stay awake on Friday night to watch the circus that this is. These become kind of a family event. You know, everybody has an interest. They are talked about around the office. They become, this bigger event. And I love seeing boxing as part of that. I love seeing combat sports as part of that. Obviously, there's the adage that I worry for Mike Tyson a little bit because, that's an old man, but still a very scary old man, but an old man nonetheless. But to answer your question, my interest has grown. Maybe I've bought into the hype that Netflix have added onto this fight and the countdown shows and stuff. But I'm all in. I'm all in on Friday night, Saturday morning. I'll be up watching.
So wait, is that women's fight? That's part of the Netflix card? Is there a whole card happening?
There's a whole card happening. And that chief support is the standout fight, which is Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. That's a really good fight. That alone could, they sold out Madison Square Garden 2 years ago when they fought last. Goes down as one of the greatest women's fights of all time. That's so that having that as chief support means even the purists have to stay awake if they're gonna. It kind of lures you in with that, and then it's a really interesting subplot. Is Katie Taylor's promoter Eddie Hearn is obviously a purist boxing guy. He said that he's there for Katie Taylor. He's gonna watch the Katie Taylor fight, but so adamant is he, so lack of interest does he have in the main event between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul? He's going home. He's going to beat traffic. He's not going to watch it. But I'm not sure if that was a little bit of a showmanship. But that kind of speaks to the attitude of many.
So this isn't his first boxing match. What have we seen from these other fights in terms of who the audience is for this? Because I'm sure the purists, it's got to be a little love-hate, right? That this guy is bringing eyeballs to a sport that many would argue was not doing well. And there's sudden renewed interest in it, but then it's also a guy who comes with a fair amount of baggage. So, are these people that become boxing fans? Do they just pop in for Jake Paul and then they leave? Do you have any sense of that at all?
No, absolutely not. So there was this weird thing where they kind of tried to justify some of these fights by putting prospects on the undercard and then saying, the fan base that these actual fighters, or let's call them traditional fighters, are going to get just by being on the undercard of a Jake Paul fight is monumental. They don't stick around. If you're a Jake Paul fan, you're not sticking around. You're not going to subsequently become a Katie Taylor fan because she was on the undercard. It doesn't work like that. They're like influencer boxing. And also, when Jake Paul first came around, and the Logan Pauls and the KSIs of this world, doing influencer boxing and bringing all this money, all this media attention into the sport, boxing did kind of need that injection. Right now, boxing doesn't need that injection because somebody called Turki Al-Sheikh came around, and the Saudi influence in boxing is monumental. So we've seen a real shift in sport of boxing. It's flying right now, but this kind of influencer side of boxing, which to call Mike Tyson an influencer boxer is obviously very silly, but it is different, right? It is like a circus boxing. It's a whole different beast. It's something completely different, even though you have a card of fighters like Katie Taylor who are very legitimate.
So I know here the betting interest has been substantial. You cover rest of world and follow boxing much more than I do. Like, are you seeing a lot of betting action across markets on this in Europe? Are people wagering on this?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it speaks to the wide demographic of fans that this taps into. You know, your Jake Paul fan or your person that's got invested in the Jake Paul journey is younger. They're the TikTok generation. They are the social media generation. My dad is messaging me all week, who's in his 60s, and my mum is in her 50s, and they're messaging me all week telling me Tyson's going to do it. He is back. He's out for the oldies, I should say. It's engaged just this wide demographic of fans, and that's super interesting. And I think that's reflected in the betting numbers as well. We've seen a massive shift in Mike Tyson's odds. He's dropped. His odds have dropped dramatically. And that is purely from where I'm sitting anyway, from my opinion, that is purely from blind optimism and faith. Because one factor that was very interesting in this was we kind of had lines, but we had markets quite late. Normally for a big fight, you get lines way out. We had lines quite late for this. And all the props came in late. We've got them now. You can bet whatever round. You can bet, whatever you want. But we've got them now, but they did come in late. And I think that's down to people, odds makers kind of wanted to see Mike this week because as fight fans, we're guilty of reading too much into pad work and what they say and things like that, how they look on the weight, stuff like that. There was a clip of John Jones this week walking, who's UFC heavyweight champion, and it kind of seemed like he had a limp. And we examined it over and over and over again. Normally, you can't take them things too seriously, but when you're dealing with 58-year-old Mike Tyson, who's already pulled out the fight once because he had a bad ulcer flare-up, which is not a traditional boxing injury, you can read into it. How he's hitting the pads. Does he look 58? Does he look young? Is he using a walking stick? All these things. Because I'm not joking. There was a clip, I think, from 2 years ago where he was walking with a cane. So, if you're doing lines on this fight, if you're making the lines on this fight, you want to know if Mike Tyson's looking, if he's looking 58 or if he's looking kind of 78 or 38, how he's looking. You read into those things, and really interesting. Also, how big Jake Paul was looking was another factor, but it certainly generated a lot of interest. And I know BetMGM predicting massive numbers as well, right?
Yeah, and those bettors are money coming in on Tyson. So the books are rooting for a Jake Paul victory. Because you say the Jake Paul fans, I think this is also equally enticing for the anti-Jake Paul fans. Like, it's not often that if somebody irks you, there's a chance you can watch someone hit them in the face. And so there is a certain amount of appeal that comes with that, I suppose. Do you know, are there any jurisdictions internationally that are not taking wagers on this?
Well, there are a few states in the US that haven't taken interest, right?
Yeah, I was wondering if there were other countries, because there are a couple here. So this is a sanctioned fight. It's the Texas group that oversees boxing in the state. But because there are amendments to the standard rules, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and Colorado have said no thank you. Because they're using heavier gloves, they're playing shorter rounds. And then Pennsylvania, apparently in a conversation with the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, also noted that the 31-year age difference would make the fight something that they just don't want to get involved in.
So that's interesting. I was going to ask you that. Is it down to kind of the modified rules, which make it so hard to price, by the way, because how much knockout power can you have with extra weight in the gloves and with 2-minute rounds? But is it down to the modified rules, or is that kind of being used as an excuse because you just don't want to touch this circus?
I mean, most of the states are touching it, including Massachusetts, who, said that they felt like these rule changes were reflected for safety to be improved. But some of it is just, you have the approved catalog of events, and if it's not within the parameters of that, you would have to hold like a special meeting, or you would have to go out of your way to get the regulator to approve it. And in this instance, just a trio of states decided it wasn't worth it. Like Nebraska actually doesn't do exhibition wagering usually, but they convened and said, we're going to offer this because we know there's going to be a lot of black market action on this, and we would rather people go to a regulated sports book and bet with us there.
And it is sanctioned as well. It will go on their record, their professional record, so it is sanctioned, which I guess adds, it would be, if they didn't get that sanction in and it was an exhibition, I think it would be very hard to get it on the books. I know I think Mike Tyson had an exhibition with Roy Jones 3 or 4 years ago, and people were wanting to bet on it, but it's so hard to get action on an exhibition fight because you're not getting a winner or a loser. It's hard to know who's gonna. The integrity is kind of hindered by that. Like they're not going to go full on. So that was kind of interesting.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
So here's my concern. Jake Paul is the proprietor of a sports book. It's in Ohio, I believe Virginia, and he is also the proprietor of Better's Picks site, which is doing like huge promotions around this and, lots of different fantasy contests related to the fight. To me, this seems not okay. Like, if you can stand to potentially profit from this, depending on your performance, and you work at the place and theoretically can take a gander and see where the money is coming in on, I don't particularly like it, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Do I like on paper? I think there is potentially an integrity issue there. It doesn't read well, right? But Jake Paul is, he's going to get $40 million for this fight. His prerogative going into this fight is to promote the Better brand, which he can do to this monster audience, and also to knock out Mike Tyson and just become even more the bad guy of boxing and become this heel that he already is. On paper, though, I do agree that, it doesn't really fly. And, the concerns are from a valid place. But Better can't offer markets on a Jake Paul fight, no?
I'm not sure if in Ohio, and it depends on state by state, the rules. Like, I would think if Better were in more states, for example, Better was in Massachusetts, I would think if he was still in Massachusetts, they would be like, absolutely not. Because like Derek Stevens, who owns Circa, at one point had a share of like the Houston Astros, and they were not allowed to offer wagering on the Houston Astros. But like on the DFS side of things, they're largely offering Better picks in states where DFS is unregulated. I don't think they have they have some states where it's like the regulated version, but there's no oversight. And as much as I get you and hear you that he's making boatloads of money, and I doubt that like this would be anything but like a drop in the bucket, the optics of it are terrible to me.
Yeah, the optics, exactly that. Yeah, it's a really strange one, isn't it? And it feels like there's if it is allowed, that then there's a loophole there or a gap in the law, that kind of a gap in the framework that enables it, because it probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's one of those like DFS, and this is a criticism I think is fair of the unregulated DFS space, is that a lot of the things they've been cracking down on in the US space, like prop bets on college players and that sort of thing, like those are being offered in the DFS space, and nothing's really being done about it because nothing can be. That it's just worth pointing out, I think. So
it's a wider issue there, though. It's a good point because there's a wider issue there with kind of DFS. It's really interesting. I hadn't really thought of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least some of the states, the DFS product is against the house versus like peer-to-peer, in which case Jake Paul stands to profit based on his performance. He doesn't seem like the type that would lose. He doesn't seem like he wants to lose, but
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with the second point. I don't think I think the ego is too big. The want to win is too big for him to ever contemplate doing something like that. But like you say, the optics aren't great, are they? And yeah, there's certainly probably a shortcoming in the framework there that allows that.
So you mentioned like the pricing of this is difficult. So I know some of it is that people just don't like Jake Paul, and so they're betting Mike Tyson and the line moves. But I mean, for those of us that don't follow boxing, like, what's the weight differential between these two? I know there's a 30-year age difference, but like, they're not the same size, are they? Like, usually don't you box people that are relatively close to the same size as you?
So we're not a million miles away in size. I don't think. I don't know
okay.
what at 58. I don't know what Mike Tyson weighs. But Jake Paul has historically, one of the big Jake Paul criticisms is he's fought kind of guys that are 100 and, he's fought guys that have fought most of their fighting lives kind of 30, 40, 50 pounds lighter than him. And he's towered over these guys. If you look at when he fought Nate Diaz, Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley, these guys are all far smaller than him in terms of frame. So he's gone up a little bit to fight Mike, but Mike was always a very small heavyweight without talking the exact numbers. So they're probably similar. They're probably not going to be too far off. But that in itself, if I'm honest, because of the career trajectory that he's had, is a disadvantage to Jake Paul because he's never fought anyone that is kind of his stature. So yeah, that's interesting. It's just whether Mike still has that old man strength where when they get on the inside, he can kind of rough him up and throw him about a bit and let him know I'm as big as you, and I'm not here to be pushed around.
Okay, we're starting to run out of time, so I would like your prediction of what you think is going to happen with this fight this week.
So I've got two predictions. I think it's going to be watched by so many people. That's my first prediction.
And we're not think about Love is Blind is pretty popular in the US at least. Like, that crashed the site. So it will be interesting to see if they have like the tech wherewithal to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and we're a live broadcast here as well, so that adds an extra factor. But yeah, I think just eyes of the world are going to be on this on Friday night. I think doing it on Friday is a good shout. Don't clash with anything else on the Saturday. Do it on the Friday. I think eyes of the world are going to be on it. My mum and dad, as I mentioned, are all over it. My sisters are all over it. My partner, she can't get enough of it. This is just attracting mass audiences. So as much as I don't like Jake Paul, kudos for the business side of it. And then the other prediction is my heart. My heart obviously says Mike Tyson's going to roll back the years. He's going to come out. He's going to bob and weave, and he's going to ice him like it's 1995. My head, though, tells me a very different story of what's going to happen on Friday night. Jake is a big lump. He can whack.
Lump.
He is a big lump. He's a big dude. Mike is a very old guy, and the last thing that goes is the punching power. So there's hope. If he can land a shot, we're good. We got Mike rolling back the years, but the first thing that goes is the chin. As soon as Jake Paul lands on that 58-year-old chin, I don't think it's going to be a good story. And I think his head's going to tell his body to do things it just can't do. He's going to want to, I think it's going to be a rough watch, if I'm honest. And my other prediction, by the way, would be anyone that's kind of getting a little bit of an interest in this should tune in just an hour before and watch Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano, because that is going to be brilliant. That's just two of the best female boxers we've ever seen, and that's going to be a fantastic fight. How about you, Jess? What are you? Give us a prediction.
I'm certainly not watching. I absolutely do not care. I feel though this isn't like a prediction, but here's my hot take. I feel like we're missing an opportunity because I don't know if you've seen like some of the NFL games we've done here. They like Nickelodeon them up where there's slime and stuff, or they've done like the Toy Story characters as the football players. I wish there was like an alt stream of this that you might be too young for this reference. That was them as Mike Tyson Punch-Out versions of themselves, like the old Nintendo game where it's like 64-bit punching each other. Like I might tune into that. That's the only way. You're getting me interested in this fight.
I love that idea. Yeah, we should trademark that just in case we see it go live on Friday night.
I know, we should sell this completely. All right, I think you need to sleep so that you are actually ready to be awake in the middle of the night. Thank you for your insights because I certainly don't know anything about boxing. Thank you guys for tuning in, and be sure to come back next week for another slate of all new episodes of iGaming Daily.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.